Should be fine now, I think. I already seen it's on right now. Alex, can you just put these things in private first before we
Yeah, sure.
show to the public? I think. It's on right now. Alex, can you just put these things in private first before we
Yeah, sure.
show to the public?
Yeah, switch to
There's
private.
some crazy echo going on. Does someone have like double sound?
Or just because I using the same computer, when I log off.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's
I
some
switch
crazy
to
echo. Someone have like double sound?
yeah. Just because I'm using the same computer, when I log off.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, I'll switch to you, Alex. You are the host right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Start again.
Right now, I will log off. I will log off. So just a minute. I will.
So it looks like we're public right now.
No.
Well, I am not logged in on LC and I can join the live.
Sorry.
I am not logged in on the LC YouTube and I can join the live.
You can join the live because it's disappeared.
Well, not logged in on LC and I can join the live. So it is public. I am not logged in on the LC YouTube and I can join the live.
Okay, yeah, well, live works. Then.
Yes, the live works then.
Logged in on LC and I can
So I'll just message Anna to come back.
log in on LC.
Yeah, the live works then. So I'll just message Anna to come back.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
So Okay. I'll just message Anna to come back.
The live
Would you like me to wait for, since we are live and people can watch this?
Yeah, you guys can mute the YouTube sound. There will not be any echo.
would you like me to wait for, since
I have my YouTube
Yeah,
muted.
just mute your YouTube sound.
It is. So I think, is it yours or Alex's? Because mine is muted.
Well, the problem is now that I've turned to private, but why the live stream is going and everybody can see it.
Just mute your YouTube sound.
Well, it's public now and Brent just left. So should I tell Anna to come now?
Yes, I think it's a good idea, yeah.
Anna to come now?
Okay, I'm gonna let Anna in. Hello.
Hi.
All right. So we're technically private right now, Alex, right?
Yes.
All right. So let's just let the team know that we're gonna go public and then we'll get into it because we don't have to wait 20 minutes. Also, did anyone get the intro clip ready? You know, that little sound bite.
I think you can start this. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you're going public now? All right. Welcome everybody to today's episode of Boundary Breakers, where we are here with the lovely Anna. Say hi, Anna.
Hi.
Sorry for everyone watching that we are joining a little bit late. That is just the way things are. My name is Piper, and I'm going to be our LC representative here leading this discussion. So Anna, in the art industry, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into anything too specific?
Sounds good. Also, I'm so sorry that it appears I'm just getting darker as the sun sets behind me.
Hey, that's life, right?
So my name is Anna. I use she, her pronouns. I'm originally from Seattle, Washington, grew up on the land of the Duwamish people, but I have been living and working and learning on the land of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh people here in Vancouver for the last almost 8 years now. Consider myself almost a Canadian. And I'm really passionate about accessibility, diversity, community engaged practice. I've worked in museums and galleries. I've worked for the city, and I've also worked for events on large scales at stadiums like BC Place. So popping my head from, book launches with 3 people to Ed Sheeran's concert with 60,000. So a pretty big scale. But all about really making those like meaningful moments of impact for people. And especially when you can do it with community.
That is music to my ears, especially coming from LC, because it is so important for us here to really harbor an energy for appreciation of other diversity and diverse backgrounds, and just to create a more inclusive community. So that's amazing that that's one of your main focuses as well. I'm interested in hearing, what did you actually do when you worked with Ed Sheeran?
Yeah, I just worked for the stadium. So I was a duty manager on site, helping manage for the concert. So kind of that load in, concert day, load out, all the logistics, and yeah, pretty incredible. Got to see some amazing concerts during my time at BC Place, lots of sports games. But I mean, I think for me, like the most meaningful work I did is I also helped launch their sensory inclusion program. So we installed their sensory room, which they've never had before, and really just working on accessibility committees and what we can do to make the stadium more accessible for
I love that.
individuals like invisible versus physical disabilities. Yeah.
No, even one of the more obvious ones, obviously people in wheelchairs have a harder time using the stairs than people that can use the stairs like with their legs. So with stadiums, how there's so many stairs, especially if you're way up in like the nosebleed seats, how do you guys tackle less able body walkers?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got accessible seating platforms throughout the stadium. And then with that as well, if you are, let's say you buy a ticket and a few months later you have knee surgery that you don't expect to have, if you're coming to a game or to a concert and you can't sit in your seat, we've got guest service locations on every floor, and we can relocate people to more appropriate seating that is more accessible. But of course, accessible seating is a huge impact. Even just those that might be able-bodied but have stamina issues, and stadiums are massive concourses, long ramps, long entryway. I think there's a lot of barriers to entry. And so even just adding more seating on like outside on the concourses is so helpful to allow people a place to rest, or not stand while they're eating their hot dog or sit while they're waiting in line. Like, I think small things like that can leave a really big impact.
And that is something I feel like most people aren't going to think about. Like me, even being a part of an organization that does care so much about, you know, making life adaptable for people that do have disabilities. I would have never thought about how would someone who isn't as able to use their legs as I am going to get around this concert. It's like a hassle enough to get around just walking everywhere, because it is so huge, it's so busy, and a lot of the time you don't know where you're going.
Totally. The amount of time I walk like the wrong direction when I'm at a new venue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's super prevalent, of course, with LC's mission for like seniors and elders. I work in an organization and like my focus is on seniors and elders. So I know a lot about just kind of like the facts and statistics that are out there, but seniors and elders are like our fastest growing population within the nation. And so we really need to be thinking about ways that like as a city, as venues, as locations, we can be doing the most to support them.
No, I love that. That was such a beautiful thought, and honestly segues into our main topic of today's interview, which is the canvas of connection, how we can nurture intergenerational dialogue through the arts and in the arts. And that is why we've brought you here today, so we can embark on a creative voyage with Boundary Breakers, which is LC's distinctive new online series, where dynamic young professionals from our team are able to join forces with influentials from the broader society. And today, of course, we have you to talk about our paradigm shift and how we can have and create a more inclusive society where everyone is able to feel more just at ease. Yeah, so that's a little bit of our
Amazing
today. I think this would be a good time to get into some of our prepared questions that we have. So additionally into these events that you recently mentioned, we also want to talk about your role that you've had in museums. So as you have experience in this industry, in museums, galleries, and community programming, which stands out as the most fulfilling and impactful to connect to that intergenerational accessibility aspect that you were talking about?
Totally. can I give 2? I know you asked for
You
the
can give
most
3 if you wanted to.
Intergenerationally specifically, I have to say Culture Club, Museum of Anthropology. So I worked at the Museum of Anthropology out at UBC's campus for over 5 years in like quite a myriad of roles. I worked in the gift shop, I worked in admissions, I did tours, I worked in education, I worked with curation. If there was a job, I did it. I have a huge passion for museums, but in getting my master's in education for museums, I really focused on community building and accessibility within cultural institutions. And so one of the, I wouldn't say issues, but one of the maybe stereotypes of MOA is that it's really full. They use what's called visual storage. And so what's incredible is often when you go into a museum, you're walking into a gallery and there's a few pieces on a wall, and what you know but you don't see is the thousands of works and belongings and artifacts and history that are all in storage. And so MOA has what's called the Multiversity Gallery, which represents like multiple ways of knowing. And in that one gallery alone, I think there's over 30,000 objects and belongings on display. And so when you walk in, it's just floor to ceiling drawers and glass cases of so many objects. And it's a really incredible space to enter, and you work your way around the world through like waterways is the way the different like hallways go between the cases, which is really cool. And so you kind of flow from like local BC up north or like through the Pacific and around the world. But 30,000 objects in just one room is a lot to see.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah. And
better be a big room, right?
A very big room. And museums as a whole, I think, have a stereotype of being either quite intimidating or quite boring. It's probably the two most similar. And so what we don't see a lot of is families. And out at UC, there's a huge population of families that live there, whether it's foreigners that are moving to do their PhDs and bring their family with them, whether it's young families that are growing up in the endowment lands, whether it's just the rest of Vancouver, or it's tourists and people visiting Canada and learning and visiting Vancouver. So we really wanted to do something that would encourage that intergenerational learning and encourage like a family-oriented program, because we didn't do much focused on families. And so we created this thing called Culture Club, and it was definitely like a trial and error. So each month was really like flexible and learning from what we were doing, but we really want to focus on that intergenerational learning and bonding that can occur when learning about culture and history. And we chose what's called the hand, head, and heart method. So something I'm really passionate about. So it's a 3-prong approach that focuses on something that really like pulls at your heart. So for example, I think this was probably the first or second session we did. It was in relation to exhibitions or pieces that are in the museum. So it was in response to Chicanx, which was a exhibition about Chicana and Chicano culture and history. And so we brought in an artist, Carmen Quiche, came in, and the first piece of Culture Club was a story. So we had a storyteller and artist come and read a storybook and connect to it to their own life. And that was the heart piece. So she read this book called A Gift from Abuela, and it was about a grandmother and a granddaughter and how papel picado, which are like those Mexican cut flags. How that kind of is representational of their relationship. And it's this really lovely story just about that bond between a grandparent and a grandchild. And then Carmen spoke about her own childhood and making papel picado with her grandparents, and really just connecting on a level that all ages can understand. I think kids understand stories, adults, like storytelling is such a connecting piece. And so that's that heart, like really pulling at that emotional piece. Followed up, then you go and with your family, intergenerationally, you went and made papel picado led by the artist. And so then right there, hands-on practicing. And as you're doing that, really encouraging conversations between the different generations. And it's not meant to be kids make it and parents watch or grandparents watch, but it's really meant to be that like interwoven activity.
Yeah, for everybody.
Exactly. And so then that third piece was the head piece. And so that piece, we made a kid-friendly guidebook that the kids led the rest of the family through the exhibit or through the gallery. I
love that.
And all of that's very like, there'd be a question like, can you find this? And then what does this remind you of in your own family? And can you draw this? And not just meant to be like scissors and paper and gluing for the sake of that, but really it all ties back to that same theme of the month. And I just think that's such an incredible like piece of intergenerational work, where you're really empowering the kids to take the lead on pieces. You're empowering the older generations to take the lead on pieces of sharing stories and really building that relationship of like everyone's value within it.
Yeah.
So that was like, I think, really impactful. We did it for the whole tenure that I was there. Started it, I want to say, in April, and then worked through until December. And every month was a different theme, a different culture was represented. And it was really great to also, we wanted to build that community within those that were coming. So they got to know other families that were there and build their own inner community as well, and really see themselves at MOA and that it's a place for them. So that was amazing. And then I would say the other really great like intergenerational and community engaged work is my current work with Arts and Health in the city of Vancouver. It's a joint run program with the Vancouver Park Board and Vancouver Coastal Health. So Arts and Health, healthy aging through the arts. And it's really rooted in creating art as programming for seniors and elders, meant to increase social connections, decrease that isolation, increase that self of like identity and pride. And one of our founding members, the first group that was started in 2006, is still running. They're called Quirky, based out of Britannia Community Center in Vancouver. And they are a queer writing collective and art group. And so it's all queer LGBTQ plus IA members. And they do writing, storytelling, art, kind of the gambit of all arts and cultures. They've been running since 2006, but in the last couple of years, they've been working with Youth for Change, which is an organization out of Surrey. And it's an intergenerational project with the LGBTQ elders and youth. And they've been documenting elder abuse within the LGBTQIA plus community within BC, and really creating incredible resources for BC Health Services, and for the city, and then also giving that almost like mentorship and vision of LGBTQ elders that so many youth need to see. I think that's such an incredible impact that this programming can have. And even though our programming is really focused on elders, those pieces where we can tie in the intergenerational work is so important.
You have mentioned so many amazing points that resonate deeply in myself, and especially with our, our whole movement here that we're trying to make at LC. And something that really stuck out to me was that youth leadership role, and that really plays into what we think about how intergenerational programming can really be a source of youth education and development, and to put kids in a position where they do have the power to be able to learn from not even just their mistakes, which I think is one of the best ways to learn from, but from just the actual experience of being able and given the chance to do so. And I think that that is something so beautiful that you guys do. I was wondering if you guys had any promotional material on hand that you would like to show for this. If not, we can post about them later when people go to review. But what do you
I don't know if I have anything right now, but I would definitely point to like our website. Our website has tons of stuff, so artsandhealth.ca. In there you'll find everything from like the projects, the artists, participants, videos from our exhibitions we do every year, also like research findings, and like even just ways to do it elsewhere. Like I'm one woman who does it here in Vancouver. But like we just work in the Metro Vancouver area. We've done work with the Tsleil-Waututh Nation on the North Shore, but I would love to see this work represented across Canada or North America. And so copy it, do your own. Would definitely point to the website. We don't really use social media, so I don't have much for that, but yeah, the website's the place to be.
Well, we will definitely be getting involved in promoting that, because that is one of our foundational pieces here that are a pillar and a tenet to us here at Love Caravan. Another thing that you mentioned that really stuck with me was kind of the metaphor that was brought forth by the pieces that are shown in the museum and the 30,000 pieces that aren't shown in the museum. And that kind of, for me, symbolized the groups of society that are marginalized. And even like using an example for queer seniors, that is a super underappreciated and under looked into group, and that is a group that is majorly marginalized. And as a society, we're trying to grow and accommodate to be more open to, you know, people from different groups, especially the LGBTQ plus group. But seniors, having already lived through a completely different time than what we're living in now, it's like, how can I adapt when I'm already at this age that I'm at? So I think that sometimes they may feel like they are that piece of art that's stuck in the back. And it's like, how can I, you know, move myself forward when I don't see where my place is, or see where I have an avenue to be able to express who I am with a group that supports it.
Yeah, I think that's probably like one of the most important pieces. And I think even just that idea of like, what is a senior and an elder? Like, there is no single experience of becoming older. There is no single experience of being a senior. And it's so like inexplicably like interwoven with intersectionality and your experiences, your socioeconomic status, your health, your abilities, your cultural identities, where you live, what access you have, family support, like all of those things are so important to how a senior experiences the world, and who even calls themselves a senior or an elder. And like, I know in the downtown east side in Vancouver, if you're considered 45 plus, you can often access like older services, which really reflects the needs of that community, but also the just severe life expectancy differences between the east side and the rest of Vancouver. And I think that is really representational. Or also then what we think of with like retirement. Like, what is retirement? Is retirement quitting your job? Who can retire? At what age can they retire? And does that mean they're retiring from life? Absolutely not. Like, some people retire and are just as busy, but I think in society, we often think, oh, they've retired from work and now they sit at home. And really, that's such a disservice to like our community and to our elders. And so that's why that programming or that support for them is really important. Within arts and health, we work at different community centers throughout the city, but our main priority is to choose those community centers via like equity mapping. And so we choose the most marginalized or try to look for like underserved communities that may need the most support to be able to provide it.
Yeah. You know, something that I think is very important to note about that is that as time is going on, what is defined as a senior is becoming such a blurry line. For instance, it used to be like the standard that you would retire from ages around 50 to 55, and then it's a 10-year jump to 60 to 65. And then what's it going to be in another 10 years? Is it going to be 70 with the life expectancies that are moving up? But then again, they are expected to work longer. And I know it's amazing for people that have the privilege, like you and I, to be in a position where we can work in a fulfilling environment, you know, where we are trying to do something to create change in society. But not everyone has the opportunity to be in a job that is fulfilling. So everyone has to work because everything is so expensive. And if you have to keep working for longer in your life and you aren't able to find something that gives you life inside, that is just brutal, because then what can you do? It's not like you could take a break because you have to keep working, and retirement plans are getting worse and worse. So it's like, if we aren't creating more programming for these seniors to be able to accommodate to what life in this society is, then it's just very doomsday settling. Like, it's very sad.
Yeah, I think, and too, even with that, like also then that pressure to work with rising costs, with rising inflation, and that need to work. I mean, I'm sure, I know like even so many people my age, I'm sure your age, especially being in university, that you find that all you're doing is working and studying. You don't really have time for hobbies or for nursing that creativity.
Yeah.
And I think that's so many people do retire and they're like, my hobby was work. And so also creating programming that helps people reconnect. I often use the quote that like, you never retire from being creative. And so sometimes like you might take a break, but like it requires refinding that and how important that is.
I liked what you said about finding your creativity in that kind of outlet. And, you know, obviously being in art and being in artist-filled network. There are many different outlets, physical, that you can see. But even just being able to express that creativity, even if it isn't in a traditional art form, to just be able to expand your mind in a way and have just like a guide to be able to do it is something that a lot of seniors love. And that's one of the main reasons why we have such success and excitement about whenever we do our Cross Canada volunteer tour, where we bring different art forms and presentations to different senior homes. And one of my favorite quotes from one of those experiences is that it gives them a lift and changes up their routine. And that's what life is. Like you said,
Absolutely.
even for youth, it's study, part-time job, test, school, eat, sleep, repeat. Seniors have this exact same thing, except they don't have as many things to do, which is more unfortunate,
Yeah.
So I think that was something that's really important that we should bring more awareness to, is that how this programming can be an outlet for people to just step out of the regular everyday toll,
Yeah, that importance of like changing up that routine or just getting outside and getting fresh air. I think a really key piece of arts and health is that regular meeting. It's meeting every week for 30 weeks, for 3 years, often more, because we aren't very good at ending our programs. And that's so important. It's that building that community and that sense of, I want to go and do this. And it's something to look forward to, something to break up that routine, especially like we look at what happened with COVID and for marginalized populations, often the impacts were far more severe. And when we think of how many seniors and elders were living within isolation or living alone or living in homes that were under such severe lockdown and not seeing anybody or having any outlets to go outside or do.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when you look at the digital divide. So many of us still were having Zoom happy hours and still meeting friends all the time. But that digital divide of access to internet, access to computers, access to video screens, like all of that, it's such a different conversation when you think of seniors and elders. And also there's still a lot of fear. There's a lot of health difficulties that are still out there, a lot of respiratory issues. The impacts of COVID were felt a lot harder. And so there's a lot more nervousness about going and doing these programs, especially I know for my programs, they happen in community centers. So we've got all the people, thousands of them, you've screaming children, you've got people studying, you got basketball, you got badminton, you have everything. And so thinking through how do we make that a safe and enjoyable space that is inclusive is really important too.
No, I love that. And like, this is something that we mentioned in our last Boundary Breakers interview with the amazing Marnie, is that to create a space, a safe space where people are able to, whether, no matter what they're doing, just to offer a space where they are able to do it is one of the biggest steps you can take into creating real change.
Absolutely. And just, I think creating that space is really an emphasis on the slow work that's required. It's creating a safe and inclusive space, but it's getting to know each other. It's building that trust. It's a reciprocal relationship. A key piece of all arts and health programming is A, it's free, and B, it has food. So it's art-based, it's art for health, but there's a built-in lunch or tea or something that it gives you that time to have those conversations and get to know each other more than just coming and going to an art class. But I think that's like the secret to community engaged work, right? Like community engaged art isn't about the final product of the art. It's about that community piece. And it's, your plans are going to change, your end of product is going to change. And that's the nitty gritty. Like that's the root of it. It's that joint creativity and connection between community members. And like, that's the joy,
No, completely. And this aspect of connection that you're bringing up reminds me of a question that I want to ask you. And I wanted you to share some success stories or positive outcomes that your programs have had on, and this organization has had, and you could see the implementation of how it has affected these lives.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I feel like my brain is just flooded with examples. I think there's something really powerful about using art to create connection and across cultures. I think also we're really driven with an accessible mindset. And so language accessibility is really important to us. So we have lots of translators available. So like just any way we can bar those like barriers to access, what can we do to remove them? And thinking about looking at projects from when they start to a year to 2 years to 3 years. And I know I was speaking to an artist recently who did a songwriting workshop with a group. And when she started on the first year, it was all kind of writing about the weather and writing about friends and writing about summer and sun and rain. And by year 3, it was individuals writing about grief and about divorce and about life and loss. And of course, when you walk into a group and you don't know anyone, you're not about to share all your trauma, but that joint healing process that can occur is so important. And I recently was attending a session where it's a story sharing circle is the program. And they had a guest speaker, part of the Heart of the City Festival, come in, and he shared a story first. And then we used that to speak about like storytelling techniques and a hook to a body to a conclusion and how to work on their own stories. But at the same time, his story resonated so deeply with all the participants that instead of the usual break for lunch, everyone sits and chats about their weekend, we just stayed in this really deep conversation. And it was about this relationship with the word love and expressing love out loud within Asian communities. And for it's predominantly Chinese and Cantonese speaking group that I oversee. And they were speaking about, for them, many of them were born in China, and ways in which for their parents and grandparents, you don't say I love you, or they didn't say I love you. But now with their grandchildren that live here and are firstborn or secondborn Canadians, and that relationship of like validation and saying I love you, and how even they struggled where their parents would say I love you to their kids, but not to them. And what does it mean to love someone? And just, it was such an incredible moment for everyone to come together about these experiences. And I'd been going for weeks, and there was some conversation, but it was that first time that you see that spark of just like trust among everyone and that bond. And it's so powerful. And I have some participants that do like 3 or 4 programs that I run a week, and like they're 98 years old and they're going to different community centers. And it's just so inspiring to see like what it means for them to keep coming and keep going, and to see how we've been able to pivot from pre-COVID to COVID to now. And I think keeping that engagement and keeping that connection is really important, but also just that idea of who belongs. I often, when I'm working with new centers to start up programs, it's an important reminder that it might be slow at the beginning. There's going to be some fear, and also that emphasis that it is for health. And I know with one that was a singing program, they had a lot of seniors that were like, oh, I can't participate, I have respiratory issues, but really emphasizing that is why you do it. Like, think of how much singing is going to help your lungs. And just because you're not Taylor Swift or Beyonce right now, it doesn't mean this is exactly what you need to be doing, and how much their respiratory issues began to lessen because of this. Or the dance programs. I know you're a dancer, and so I'm sure you can connect to this, but so many seniors with mobility, because if they're not leaving their apartment because they don't have something in their routine, they're not walking around regularly, and you're losing that people. And so a lot of fear of going to a dance class, but hey, we're going to start with just some movements and a chair. Like, really, you start wherever your group is at. And I think one challenge that you also face, of course, in any group is like mixed abilities. And so I think something that Arts and Health does really well is cultivating that group sense of support and everyone helping each other no matter where they're at. And just making room to talk about where people are at, I think, is so important. I think that fear of not being good enough keeps us all from doing stuff. And I think especially with seniors, I think a huge benefit of Arts and Health is that reminder that seniors are just as willing to learn new skills. Like, there's that saying, an old dog can't learn new tricks. And like, that's not true in any way. And I think sometimes even seniors need to be reminded themselves, because we live in a society that disregards almost their abilities, and we disregard that they want to learn more when that's exactly what they're capable of.
You know, I love that, because I'm a firm believer in the saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. So that is super like relevant to my life because my grandma, she is, I don't even know how old she is these days, somewhere 80 something, of course. But she is more active than most people our age. Like she'll go on a 2-hour hike every day, and she, you know, is afraid of like medication or whatever, and she has to take one pill every day, and she's like, oh my God, I'm getting old. And you know, I feel like even relevant in my life when I look back to when I was 15 to how I am now and how much stiffer my body is because I use it less.
Totally. I think we see it so much, especially in our generation, and how much we live on computers and at our desks, the work from home. I know sometimes I'm working and then I'm like, I haven't gone outside all day. I need to just go have fresh air. Like it's such a different culture. And so I think that's really important. And like, honestly, I think a lot of the things that seniors are facing in isolation, I think a lot of younger generations are going to be facing too, with that we all live in these apartments and often we work from home, we live at home, like making sure we have those outlets to go outside, which I also think is a key piece of that intergenerational work of ways that we can intertwine those two communities is really important.
No, I love that. And, you know, this is another thing that we are trying to bring awareness to, and that is made easier through this online modem of boundary breakers, is that by talking and hearing other people's perspectives and people who tune in, it has that relatability aspect. And when people are like, oh, hey, that resonates with me, I'm going to think about that more and I'm going to be moved by what you're doing. That is one of the main works here in working at a charitable organization, right? Just having if you have the ability to do it, you should do it. And if you can change someone's life, even in such a inconsequential way, it is something you don't know the ripple effect that it may have, right?
Totally.
So that's why it's so important that we grow this network with like-minded organizations so that we can reach a broader audience and try as a community just to have everyone listen to each other, have everyone feel what each other's feeling. And even if you can't fully relate, then just being able to hear them out and just coincide with what they are doing, that is something that is so important for this community aspect.
I totally agree.
I wanted to ask something more about incorporating the arts into life. So how do you think incorporating various art forms contributes to sharing experiences between the generations?
Yeah, I mean, I think art is, I almost want to use the words like an international language. I think
I love that. That's
everyone can appreciate art. I think you can travel around the world. You can see art that you might not speak the same language as somebody, but you can appreciate their art. And I think the exact same thing is to be said of different generations. The exact same thing is to be said of people of different backgrounds and cultural identities, socioeconomic status. Like none of that determines your creativity. It's such an interesting piece. Like art in and of itself is so accessible and so inaccessible at the same time. And I also just think you have such an appreciation for that, like using your hands, and that's something that doesn't go away or change with age. And so I know I recently have been taking some pottery classes. I wouldn't describe myself as an artist. I'm an art supporter, love the arts. I'm tone deaf. I have no rhythm. Like, give me a paint by numbers, you know? But I've been taking some pottery classes and brand new appreciation for every single piece of ceramic I've ever seen. That wheel, I've never done something harder. I had a 2-hour class and I made a bowl with no bottom. Like it was so hard. But I think there's that idea that like it's hard for everyone, you know? And so there's such a nice, it's like almost like a evening ground for different generations to come together. And it's also, there's something so therapeutic. Like I've been doing lots of paint by numbers when I'm stressed, and like there's something so nice about the way that it kind of takes you out of your mind and you're not really thinking about anything. I think it's almost the same as reading a book, going to the play, like listening to music. All of that is such a great way. And I think it's a really nice way to get to know someone, and conversation can start so easily. Just over a little bit of artwork or creating art together is so powerful. yeah, I feel like I really derailed from your question. So I hope that
I don't think you derailed at all. And, you know, I think it is so significant, that piece that you said about how you aren't an artist, but you are able to learn so much from art is something that every person can take from this. So like the seniors that you mentioned that said, I have respiratory issues, I can't sing, or I'm in a wheelchair, I can't dance. I've mentioned that I grew up dancing my entire life. I've also been a dance teacher, and I've done programs for children with disabilities. I've done programs for seniors, and obviously seniors have a lot of different aspects of their life that are currently going on. But I have had a girl that was in a wheelchair, and she loved dancing, and she was amazing, and like front and center in every performance, because she had so much joy just being able to be there. And no, she can't move her feet the way that we could, but she can move her arms and she could spin around real good. So I think that shows the power of art. Like, no matter what you're doing, like you said, seniors never lose that love for wanting to do things with their hands. Remind us that we're human, remind us that we're alive, and that we can do something. I think that being bad at art can even show more about the significance of what art can do to the community. And I think that is something that the audience and that will try to project to everyone that comes across and stumbles across this conversation, but that art can be something for those that don't even think they can do art. And, you know, I think that is super moving, even from you thinking that you went so off kilter, but for me, that was exactly what I wanted to hear. So I hope that the audience members, that resonates something within them. Have you personally participated in any art programs alongside seniors? And if so, what experiences impact your understanding of the challenges that they face?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. Like, any chance I get to go to my programs, I will take it up. So they're all a bit different. So I've participated like in the storytelling circle. I went to one of the singing programs, and boy, can I not sing. I've gone to songwriting. There's a really incredible one that's based out of the Carnegie Community Center. It's with artist Keely O'Brien, and Carnegie's located in the downtown east side. The community of seniors is predominantly Chinese women, and so we speak both Cantonese and Mandarin. The entire program is done virtually via conference calls. So I participated in that. I was able to dial in like from my computer, but for many of them, it calls a landline. Some of them cell phones. And I think even just that, like that idea of connecting via a landline is something that so many homes and apartments and etc. don't have anymore. And yet so many still do. And we've kind of just forgotten about that technology. Yeah. So again, with that digital divide, but so it's a painting and like art-based program, and all the materials are mailed out ahead of time, and then the instructions are written by our artist, who then sends them to our translator, who then translates them into 2 more languages, who then sends them to the coordinator, and the coordinator then mails them to all of the participants. So then they receive their instructions for the week, and then they all hop on a call. Keely, the most incredible patient and kindest soul that I've met, then just cultivates this space where so many of these people might not even have met in person, and yet there's such a deep bond between everybody. Yeah. And the way everybody greets each other and the conversations that flow while being translated into 3 different languages as they're going through these instructions. And you can't see each other's works, which I think is so interesting, because then at the end of the year, they all go in our exhibition, and it's just such an interesting piece of like ways in which working with seniors is different. Mm-hmm. I also think this like word transition comes up a lot. I think seniors and others especially are in periods of transition, whether it's transitioning their independence, transitioning like physically with maybe it's hearing, maybe it's eyesight, maybe it's movement, it's joints, it's whatever it may be, it's transitions within society, it's transitions of the way other people are viewing them. And I think with that is a lot of grief as well, grief of those that may be passing, but also maybe loss of independence or loss of movement. And so handling that requires special care. Mm-hmm. And I was recently in a conversation about working with seniors and older adults, and there was quite a few dancers in the group that don't work for arts and health, but they teach dance programming across the board. They teach youth, they teach adults, they teach mixed abilities, a bit of everything. And they were talking about how they feel really unprepared for losing someone who might be in a group, or conversations around that. And also the way in which I think as we age and we come to terms with the fact of life expectancy and death, and that is something that happens to everyone. I think the way in which we talk about it is really different in different phases of our aging. And I think even just that is something to be cautious of, or understand that it is almost more matter of fact for seniors and older adults. And it is something that's almost spoken about more, but in society is almost taboo.
Yeah, very hush hush for sure. Like, let's just avoid that.
Totally. And yet, like, those are things that are so prevalent in these communities and should be talked about. And so finding ways. I also think generational trauma is really important to be cautious of. And I think it's really important to hold space for that, hold space for building that trust, but also recognize that in a lot of communities, a lot of older adults grew up in a time where it wasn't okay to express their emotions, or it wasn't okay to be loud, or with Indigenous communities, it wasn't okay to practice their cultural traditions, or practice art, or practice their language. And so there can be a lot of trauma with that. And making sure to create space to hold that as well. I really just often emphasize the importance of like slow work. Like it's not about, okay, we're all going to sit down and by the end of this, we're all going to be painting like Monet. It's really about doing the work that needs to happen. And if that work is everyone sitting and talking, if that work is sitting really quietly, or if it is painting one painting altogether, or maybe everybody pivots, and that's okay. And being flexible for that, I think you need to hold a lot of patience. You need to hold a lot of flexibility, and I think just hold space for whatever emotions may be coming as well. And respect. I think respect is obviously incredibly important when working with seniors and older adults, and something that doesn't get talked about as much within work. I think we often talk about respecting an instructor, respecting a teacher, but that really is a two-way street, and deserve just as much respect.
I think this is completely relevant to the classic movie trope where it's not about the end point, but it's about the journey and the friends you meet along the way. And that is where growth actually happens. And honestly, the end is always up in the air, and we are never going to be able to see where it actually ends up. But just being a part of that journey and being able to be part of that growth is such a way that younger people can get involved in creating a safer space for these seniors. And I think that this is something that LC is really trying to get that intergenerational youth development aspect to help aid in that development. So I think that was a beautiful way to connect that to the generational trauma and how we can actually make a difference, even if we aren't able to see what is going to come of it.
Totally. I often think like that which we don't know is the best. Like it's the experiences that we don't expect that end up being that most powerful, and those connections that we forge.
No, I love that. I think that this was a nice point to segue into our little game that we have prepared. So I'm going to assume that you've heard of Kahoot before, right?
I have.
All right. Alex, our amazing tech guy, perfect. If you are able to get on your phone in the audience, everybody, please join this Kahoot code. I didn't know that there was a QR for this now, but that's easy if you can pull out your phone. Let's see how many people were able to get join.
Do you want me to join via the phone as well, or am I just playing with you?
I would love for you to be able to join. If you are unable to, though, I can click your numbers on mine.
Okay, I think it's thinking.
All right, should we wait just like a couple seconds to see if we have any audience members that are able to join? All right, hopefully they could just play along with us.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
This will be testing your knowledge. All right, which museum houses the Starry Night painting by Vincent van Gogh? Perfect. We got
Amazing.
that one right. Have you ever been to this museum?
I never have, but I would absolutely love to.
Where is it? Obviously somewhere in Europe, I'm assuming.
No, it's in New York.
Oh, well, obviously I didn't know that. You learn something new every day. I love New York. I've been once. I was really young, but I loved it. Let's go on to the next one.
Sounds good.
Which Canadian museum features a large collection of Inuit art?
I'm intrigued because I feel like lots of these do. I don't think I got it right.
You know what? I bet the Canadian Museum of History does.
It was my museum. I was gonna say the biggest one's in Winnipeg, I believe. So
what are some of your favorite Inuit features from any of these museums, since they all have some Inuit features?
yeah, I personally really love the stone sculptures by Inuit artists. One of my good friends, Emily Henderson, is an incredible writer and now curator of Inuit art and culture. And her father is an incredible artist. So I've seen many of his works. Some of them are in MOA as well. There's sealskin work. I have some sealskin earrings by Inuit artists, and I just took it off my little desk, but I used to have one of the Inuit little bone sculptures as well on my desk. So yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen the bone sculptures, but growing up in Fort McMurray, obviously we have a large Indigenous population, and we learned how to build Inukshuks when we were in school, which is one of my favorite installations of any Inuit art piece. And I feel like they're pretty prevalent, and one of those iconic ones that you're like, I immediately know what this is.
Yeah, and very like iconic of Canada. Yeah.
Mhm.
I would say,
No,
yeah,
I
that's
agree.
true. Of course, those are, and yeah, the soapstone is always going to be beautiful.
I agree. All right, let's move on to the next one. Which painter is famous for the Mona Lisa, which you did talk about earlier?
Perfect.
I know that one's a given. That one's a given. I love the modern takes on the Mona Lisa where they just edge it up a little bit, like give her glasses or like
Yes.
her like smoking, or just I love when they take something that's old and put a new twist on it to make it like unique, especially for a specific theme. I love that. That's one of my favorite ways to transform art into something else.
I have a great t-shirt that I bought in the streets of Mexico one year. That's the Mona Lisa, but in like a Daft Punk shirt covered in tattoos. Like,
yeah,
fabulous. Yeah.
That is exactly what I'm talking about. All right, let's go on to number 4. I think this is called the Louvre.
It is.
What is it known for? I don't know. It might be sports.
Yeah, definitely an arena in there.
I feel like that would be definitely a safety risk with all the glass.
Yes.
I'm up through there. I would not want to be part of that cleaning crew, that's for sure. All right, and on to our final question. Which Canadian museum has the largest collection of Canadian contemporary art?
Oh,
Might be another tricky one. I guessed wrong on this one.
Oh no. So are we tied? We both got 4 right?
I
Or
think
maybe not.
they would put us side by side on the podium. Oh,
Oh,
oh my God, you ended up, that was an underdog moment.
10 points ahead.
You know, you must have been speedier than me. Well, that's cute. I hope some of our audience members were able to play along, even if they weren't able to physically. Thank you for participating in our little game.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're trying to do something where it connects to obviously the expertise of whoever we are interviewing. So yeah, that is something fun that we were able to connect with. I think this would be a good time to ask some questions from our audience members. We already have a couple that are from the live, so I will get right into that. Someone has asked, has your organization conducted a survey to find out the feedback from seniors, and what are their feelings about the work you guys are doing?
Yeah, so when Arts and Health was first started in 2006, a key piece of it was doing research and development. And so on our website, you'll find all of the research findings. And it was originally going to be just a 3-year program. And due to the feedback of artists and seniors is why we are many years past 2006.
Yeah.
And still going strong. Yeah, so what was cool is that the research really looked at the social benefits, but also the actual like health and well-being benefits. And something that was kind of an unexpected side effect was the creativity for well-being and ways in which that really connected and resonated with those seniors. I am so privileged and so honored to work within the Department of Decolonization, Arts and Culture. And then within that, my smaller department, I guess it would be called, is the arts community engagement. And so my work is situated within that team, which is all community engaged art programming, looking at, based out of community centers often, but looking at areas all over Metro Vancouver. And so we have definitely a mandate of like reporting to the board, to the city, but then also just being really reflexive within our programming. So we do lots of surveys throughout the year. I do surveys at the end of every year for all the seniors that participate in all of our programs. And a really key piece of that is every single year for the week before Seniors Week. So this year it'll be May 31st. If you're in Vancouver, we have a super large exhibition we do every year. So every single group, whether they're active groups or active alumni, come and perform in our performance hall. So very nerve-wracking, I know, for some of our participants, but they perform for everyone. We fill an entire exhibition wall for every project, showing all of their works throughout the year. And we do a big luncheon, and then all of the staff serve all of the seniors and elders, which I love. So just that piece of like, they get to invite their families and like really instill that sense of pride, I think is so important, and also just raise awareness for types of programming like this. But yeah, we definitely ask for lots of feedback. Nothing we do is in isolation. And I think that's that really important piece of that community engaged work, is that it's not even just about consultation, but it's about collaboration. And so even when we're starting with new projects, it's meeting with a community center that feels aligned. And then from there, it's often going, connecting with their seniors council and connecting with their seniors worker. And when we do an artist call, the artist call is for a specific area, but on that hiring committee is me, it's going to be someone from the center, it's going to be probably a seniors worker, and it's probably going to be a member of the community that is then deciding what artist project we think is right. And then within that, it's constant feedback and connecting of the artists with the seniors about what they want to see and how they want it to change. So all kind of like intertwined throughout the process.
No, I like that aspect of how the exhibit gives people a voice. And that is something that we are also trying to do with our 2024 Intergenerational Gala that we are putting on. And we are actually having a art gallery there where we're having local artists either donate or have their pieces up for auction for the silent auction. And, you know, being involved in such an artistic network, we were wondering if you would be available to attend. This will be in June. And I think it'd also be amazing if we could have some of the people that do participate in your programming, if they could even be part of the art gallery.
Oh my God, I think that would be an amazing opportunity. Yeah, I would love to talk to my different programs. Two specifically, I think could make really amazing work. I think it's obviously a cause that's so near and dear to their hearts. And so I think that would be great. And then to have their work shown in a gallery, of course, never hurts. Keely O'Brien's program at Carnegie, they, during COVID, did a project where everyone painted something that was in their pantry list and they looked at every day. And we made like one big painting that had like a jar of soy sauce and peanut butter and all the different stuff that it's because it's what their views were.
Yeah.
Their window of COVID, but it became such a great piece. Or for Christmas this year, they were going to do Christmas cards and mail them in between. But what they said is that they didn't want to just see one of their works. They wanted to see all of them. So
yeah,
they all painted something. Then they mailed all of them to the artist and she made one big card with everyone's work. And so I even think something like collaborative would be really cool in that art gallery.
I think that would be amazing. And, you know, we could even do like a little collaboration where it's part of one of the month's programming that everyone works on that. And then we could have that be a part of our, I don't even know, we can have so many different things come out of this.
Totally. Let's chat more.
Perfect. Now that it's on your radar, we'll stay in close contact so we can help plan this. But yeah, this gala is going to be something where we are able to fundraise to help improve our programming even more, because, you know, as nonprofits are, it is not always easy to be able to afford everything in an expensive world. So this gala is going to be an opportunity to showcase our network that we are building and building every day, showcase our tenants and how they are applicable, and really give back. That's what fundraising is about, right? So the gallery that we're doing is one of my favorite pieces that we're doing, because we get to show some exposure to some local artists and really just help them be integrated into what we're trying to do here, which is one of our main goals here at LC. I wanted to ask if you were giving advice to youth, no matter in what realm we're talking about, what is your favorite piece of advice that you would give to them and why?
Just do it. Oh, I sound like Nike.
It is. Watch out, that's copyright.
I think everyone is self-conscious. I think everyone's worried about perceptions or life plans. And one of the greatest things I ever did is in my second year of university, I took 8 months off and I solo backpacked all 7 continents in 7 months. I'd never backpacked before. I had never stayed in a hostel before. I literally had never gone on a hiking trip for more than a day. And I was like, I can do it. Like,
might as well.
I booked a few intercontinental flights, like into one continent, out a different airport to another continent, and just absolutely like winged it. And I don't think I've ever learned more in my entire life. I don't think I've ever learned more about myself. And I think I really just looked at myself and I was like, I'm going to finish school, I'm going to graduate, I'm going to get a job, and then I'm going to have 2 weeks vacation. And when am I ever going to make do this again? When
am I going to have the opportunity?
And I think that's such an incredible piece of, like, even as people are working in careers, I have so many friends that are in careers that they thought it was a great job and now they don't like it, but to change for them is lowering their status or getting a role somewhere else that might not seem as cool, but they might like more. And I really think just try and cast aside that self-consciousness as best you can. Of course, it's easier said than done, but any way that you can just empower yourself to do it, I think is so, so important. And I think it goes for not even just youth, but I think it's advice for everybody.
No, I think that's so important too. And, you know, I think from the feedback that we've just had from speaking to so many seniors is that they feel like they may not be able to, like that they've reached their ceiling. But I don't remember which influential older lady said this, but she says, if you don't make it in your 30s, you make it in your 40s. If you don't make it in your 40s, you make it in your 50s. And if you don't make it in your 50s, you make it in your 60s. And that goes back to just this corny saying, YOLO, you only live once, but you do only live this life once. And if you're not dead, you might as well do something, right?
100%. Like, you're never too late to learn a new skill. You're never too late to do something. When I was in Zimbabwe, I met a woman named Linda, and she and I, like, it took a little, she was just traveling around, I was traveling around, and we decided to go to Botswana for the day to see Chobe National Park and the elephants. And like, she was like, in the middle of the day, she's like, should we get a beer? And I was like, yes, Linda.
Why not?
She was like, I never got to travel, so I'm doing it now. And I just think it's so important to like do it as you can, and don't be afraid to change careers if you're not happy. Don't be afraid to pick up a new hobby. Don't be afraid to any of that. Like, really live life to the fullest, because you only have that one life, and
Yeah.
there's no definition of success outside of your own.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. That is something that Marnie also discussed about what success actually means and how it's such an individual term, but is currently based on societal standards. And that's why we need to break these misconceptions and just expand life in every way that we can. And I think that is something that everyone can incorporate into their lives, no matter what background they are, no matter what age or what they're doing, that it's relevant to everybody.
Yeah, I think even just like that idea of like labeling yourself and like, what does it mean to be older? Like, there are some 98-year-olds that are more active than I am.
Yeah.
I just saw Kiss perform the other day in town.
I know, they are crazy.
And I was like, Gene Simmons is up there in heels, taller than I could wear, probably burning more calories, doing more dance moves that I'm capable of. Like,
yeah,
I was like, he's 70. I feel like my body can't do that. And so really just like defining for yourself what it means, and don't let, because society says you're older, because society says you're not young either. Like, if you want to do a paint by numbers, let me tell you, highly recommend. If you want to read a little picture book, the other day I read a picture book with my candle burning, listening to some Christmas music. Fabulous. I loved it.
No, I love that. I think that with this wide network that you have, it would be so amazing to be able to invite some potential people to come speak on our show in the future. And, you know, since you do this intergenerational type of programming, is there any youth or even younger person that you may know that would be an applicable guest speaker to have on our show?
Ooh, oh my God, that's such an interesting question. I knew you were going to ask me for a recommendation, but I didn't think of someone who's specifically a youth. What about someone in their early to mid 20s? Would you consider that a youth, or do you want
younger? Yeah.
Younger. Can I get back to you?
Yes, you totally can. You know, you kept mentioning Keely. Could you give a little feedback on her and how potentially she could be one of our guest stars?
Totally. Oh my God, I think Keely O'Brien would love to. She is an amazing artist, Vancouver-based visual artist, who is really doing incredible community engaged work. I work with her in arts and health, but I know she has lots of contracts going on. Honestly, I want to give a shout out to all of my arts and health artists. Veronica does moving stories at Strathcona and is an amazing dancer. Jim Sands is a storyteller based out of the Strathcona area, works out of Rakeham. Keely works out of Carnegie. And Leah is an amazing songwriter and musician and works with my seniors at the Roundhouse. Leah Abrams. So all of them are doing incredible work. But yeah, I think Keely O'Brien would be a great guest. Also, there's so many interesting artists out there doing great work with like environmental work that I think is really important. So
I think that could be a great feature on our show. Who are any of these environmental involved?
Elvira Monteforte is an artist I worked with when I worked at MOA. She's calls herself a Connexian artist. So she was born and raised in Mexico, but I believe she's lived in Canada since the early 2000s, I want to say. And is an incredible, she makes what's called hot art, which is ornamented like trash art. And so it's upcycling.
I love that.
She does a lot of major community engaged projects. She works with youth in schools. She works with community of all ages. I worked with her actually in one of the culture clubs. They came in and they did this incredible piece around the environment, and we made out of recycled plastic from like the museum's old recycling. We made jellyfish. And then we did a whole piece about works that are made from there's such a thing called ghost net sculptures, which are all the nets that's left in the ocean, and end up tangling and killing all of these animals. So an indigenous group of artists in the South Pacific have started collecting all of these nets that are on the beaches and turning them into ghost net sculptures. The museum has quite a few that are hanging. And so then the kids made their own like miniature plastic jellyfish out of recycled materials. And then got to go and see all these different works that are in MOA that are made of recycled materials from around the world, which was really cool. So Elvira Monteforte is amazing. She has cool, she and her partner just did a really interesting work down in Richmond, a big mural. They've done some cool weaving with wood and conversations around the environment and pollutants in different parks. They've done some cool installations around the Lower Mainland with using, I think it was like milk jugs to make fish sculptures that are now like these major public works of art. Yeah, a really interesting artist with an incredible background as well. Her father was really like a pioneer within Mexican film. In Texas, northern Mexico, and was a really incredible like actor. And yeah, she's just definitely, I would define like a really great like activist within the art community as well, and a kind soul. So she'd be a great connection as well. There's so many amazing artists out there, and I think that's maybe another piece of advice that I really highly recommend, especially for youth, is go out and meet your local artists. If you're in Vancouver, there's that super colorful motel at like Main and 6th. It used to be an old motel. It was bought to be developed into more condos, as is the Vancouver way. While they're waiting for the permits, they've converted all of it into over 100 different artist studios. So you can go in, they do open studios, meet with the artists, buy local. It's just such an important way to like really help with that like slow economy, but also just meet so many amazing artists. I can't recommend enough. Like even just once a month, go to a pottery class, go to a painting class, try something new. You never know when you're going to find like your new passion. Or just meet some really inspiring people.
No, I agree. And I think oh my God, I totally just lost my train of thought. But yeah, I think it's really important for people to always be trying new things, because you never know how you are going to be moved. And, you know, going back to what you said about supporting local, like we all know that the big successful companies already have enough support from all of us. So if you have the ability to go support someone locally, you should do it, because not only are you going to have something more unique, you're going to be helping someone, and you never know the effect that having someone believe in you is going to make. And, you know, if you have the ability to do that, that is so important for building community efforts and just making everyone grow as a person, you know.
Absolutely, especially if you have artistic friends, like support them, go to their shows, whether they're a DJ or a singer or a musician or an artist with an art gallery show. Buy a ceramic mug from them, buy a plate, like listen to their stories. And like we live in a society that really does not support artists as a means of livelihood, and it can be so difficult to make your own livelihood via art. And so it really requires that like communal support to do so. And I just really emphasize everyone to like go, and if they have friends that are feeling really creative, like don't let that creativity die because our society doesn't support it.
No, 100%. And I feel like that is something everyone can incorporate into their lives. And even in such a small way where it doesn't even have to affect how your regular everyday outlook is, but just to make a small bit of change is going to be able to create more, and it's going to build and build with no matter how many people you talk to. So I think that that is something that everyone is able to do that can help the whole as a whole.
Absolutely.
No, totally. I think that this would be a good time to take a little group picture. Have you ever tried out the virtual like filters that you can put on Zoom?
Yes, I haven't done one in forever. Let me see if I remember how to do this. Video filter, right? No, maybe?
Yes, yes. Under your three little dots. I feel like a beret is very artistic.
Mine says, I have none.
You have zero?
It says NONE, like it says none.
Oh my God, that is so sad.
This is so sad.
You know what? Maybe I'll just have to wear the hat then, and you
Okay.
pretend that you have a hat on.
Sorry.
No worries. All right, let's pose, let's do our smiles, and then we'll end off on how you want to yeah. Okay, perfect. I'm going to just leave my hat on for the rest of this. Are there any final parting words that you feel like the audience should know about?
I think be kind to seniors and elders in your community that you see. Be kind to your friends. The world is a really tender place right now, and especially around the holidays. I think a reminder that the holidays aren't always the happiest time for everyone either, or there are so many. I know my grandma lives in a retirement home in the US in a different state than the rest of my family. Like, I don't get to see her as much as I wish. And so just a reminder to make time for people too. Text your grandma, text your grandpa, say hi. So important.
You know, I think that that goes back to something my dad always used to say, how he's like, the phone goes two ways. And as a kid, I was like, why would I, like, I shouldn't have to reach out to you. But it's like, if they're thinking about you and you're thinking about them, then someone's gotta reach out. And, just because someone is older doesn't mean that they don't have that self-esteem confliction that you were talking about earlier. Everyone has their own self-consciousness, and that we just have to be able to step above that and just do it, like you mentioned.
Absolutely.
Once again, I just want to thank you for this amazing conversation that we've had today. And I hope that there are people in the audience out there that have been moved by some of the advice that you've had, sharing your experience, sharing the impact that your programming has. And I feel like this is the start of an amazing connection. And I can't wait to see where we can go with the gala and how we can both get involved in each other's programs. And yeah, this was amazing. I did learn more about arts. I learned more about how I can do better, change my perspective. And, that's my favorite part of, being a host of these interviews, is that I'm in the conversation and I'm learning, so if I'm doing it, I know other people are doing it too.
Amazing. Thank you again, just so much for having me and for all the work that Love Caravan does. All of your team are the sweetest, and your work is really important.
Thank you so much. All right. If there's no final questions from the audience, we are going to wrap up for today. Thank you so much, everyone who came and talked with us, or just listened, or just had us in the background. We really appreciate it. And this has been Boundary Breakers.